very difficult for my parents to understand that Elvis would be so interested in me and why. And I really do think, because I was more of a listener, Elvis would pour his heart out to me in every way in Germany. His fears, his hopes, the loss of his mother, which he never ever got over.
I tried to turn my back to that, but I just didn't want to share him. Simple as that. As much as he wanted to be married and have a family, I don't know if he was ever cut to be married.
There are love stories in the history of music that are not just memories of melodies, but obsessions of scandal, the lingering taste of timeless controversy. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, and Priscilla Presley, the girl who was only 14 when she first met him in Germany in 1959, are one such story. The 10-year age gap, the mixture of romance and power, glamour and sacrifice, turned their relationship into a symbol that has fueled public debate for more than half a century. By 1963, when Priscilla left Germany to move into Graceland in Memphis, she had just turned 18. Elvis had waited for that moment, and from then on, his world enveloped her like a luxurious but suffocating universe. Elvis decided everything: her clothes, hairstyle, makeup, even her manners. He turned Priscilla into a living doll, an image he wanted to present to the world. For a girl barely out of her teens, that mixture of adoration and control was both a privilege and a burden. Priscilla accepted sacrificing her youth to enter a marriage that many at the time thought was a Hollywood fairy tale, but was, in reality, steeped in calculation. On May 1, 1967, Las Vegas awoke to shocking news. Elvis Presley would marry Priscilla Presley. But unlike most Hollywood star weddings' lavish media spectacles crowded with reporters and cameras, Elvis's wedding was the opposite. It was staged like a military operation, orchestrated by Colonel Tom Parker, the infamous manager who treated Elvis as a strategic asset. The venue was the Aladdin Hotel, inside a private suite sealed off completely. Security guarded every door to block prying eyes. The ceremony lasted only 8 minutes. Priscilla, in a self-designed white dress and makeup carefully styled to Elvis's taste, entered a space staged like a set. Elvis, in a sleek black suit, held the hand of the girl he had known since she was 14. They exchanged shortened vows. Elvis even demanded the word "obey" be removed from the traditional pledge, a small detail that sounded like the rebellion of a man used to control. And then, in 8 minutes, a marriage was declared. Brief in time, but extravagant in display. The 6-tier wedding cake, worth $3,200 to over $22,000 today, became iconic. Made of yellow sponge cake with apricot filling and Kirsch-flavored Bavarian cream, the cake cost more than the average Chevrolet. The next morning's reception, with roast suckling pig, oysters Rockefeller, and other luxury delicacies, proved that even a private wedding had to be sealed with grandeur. The press? They were only allowed in after everything was over, given a pre-selected set of photos to publish. For Hollywood reporters, it was a slap in the face. For Parker, it was victory. Elvis was protected, his image immaculate, with not a single frame leaking beyond his control. The public only saw glowing images of Elvis and Priscilla, while behind closed doors simmered resentment among his inner circle. Weeks later, that resentment began to surface among the Memphis Mafia and Elvis's closest friends. Those who had stood by him through hard years were excluded from the guest list. For many, it felt like betrayal. Parker could control the media, but he could not heal wounded hearts. Elvis understood that. On May 29, 1967, less than a month after the wedding, Elvis and Priscilla hosted a second reception at Graceland. This was no ceremony, but an attempt at atonement. The garden was filled with flowers, wine, and live music. Elvis and Priscilla mingled, posed for photos, and offered thanks. For many, it was the first time they felt acknowledged. But the cheerful atmosphere was only a mask covering cracks already visible. Among those most deeply hurt was Red West, Elvis's longtime bodyguard from the very beginning. Being excluded from the official wedding, then invited only to a makeup party, left him with a wound that never healed. Years later, West co-authored Elvis. What Happened? 1977. A book exposing Elvis's darkest sides, which pushed him further into despair in his final years. This proved that the fractures between Elvis and his inner circle were never truly mended. The Graceland party, therefore, was not just compensation. It became proof of the growing distance between the king and the brothers who once stood by him. To the public, the young couple looked radiant and happy, but inside the circle, loyalty was giving way to doubt. From that seed, new tragedies slowly grew. Afterward, Priscilla's life at Graceland resembled a pre-written script, with Elvis as its director. He was not only her husband, but also her stylist, director, and absolute controller of her appearance and lifestyle. From the very beginning, Priscilla had to transform into Elvis's ideal image. He wanted the naive brown-haired girl to become a symbol. Long jet-black hair, heavy eyeliner, flawless pale skin, and a sensual yet refined wardrobe. Every detail was dictated by Elvis. Priscilla later recalled, "You lived his life. You saw the movies he wanted to see to Elvis. Shaping Priscilla was like creating a living work of art." To him, she was both lover and a reflection of his power and taste. But for Priscilla, every layer of makeup, every dress, every invisible rule became chains that strangled her identity. She gradually lost herself in that closed world where friends, habits, and hobbies were all arranged by Elvis. If he wanted to go out at midnight, she had to be ready. If he demanded she maintain a pure image, she could not refuse. Behind that control lay deep insecurity. After his mother's death in 1958, Elvis became haunted by loss and terrified of abandonment. Controlling Priscilla was his way of building a safe zone, ensuring at least someone belonged to him. But this very bond planted the seeds of inevitable cracks. Priscilla would later admit, "He molded me into the woman he wanted me to be." A statement that may sound like admiration, but, in truth, was a confession of a lost self. And as the cracks deepened, Priscilla turned to karate, a discipline that became a metaphor for reclaiming control over her body and spirit. But by then, what had been lost during her years as Elvis's wife was nearly impossible to recover. Pregnancy, which should have been a time of bonding as a new life was about to enter the world, instead exposed every fracture in their marriage. At 7 months pregnant, Priscilla was shocked when Elvis suddenly suggested what she later recalled with bitterness, a trial separation. He offered no explanation, only saying that pressure, schedules, and public image required distance. For a young woman about to become a mother, it was a knife to the heart. Elvis had his own obsessions. He opposed birth control, seeing children as sacred. Yet when Priscilla became pregnant, he grew distant. To him, a pregnant woman seemed to lose her sexual allure. Priscilla shifted from lover to mother, and that line made it difficult for him to return to intimacy. At the same time, Elvis was swept into the Hollywood movie cycle, frequently absent and entangled in fleeting affairs with co-stars, leaving Priscilla alone in the vast halls of Graceland. The so-called trial separation never officially happened. Elvis neither left nor truly stayed. It was a limbo filled with wounds, pushing Priscilla to seek comfort elsewhere. Enter Mike Stone, the karate instructor. He gave her the care and attention Elvis had abandoned. Their affair was not merely a lonely wife's rebellion, but an inevitable consequence of a sensitive soul eroded by control, power, and emotional void. Priscilla later admitted, "I don't think Elvis really intended to leave me. It wasn't his style," a remark both forgiving and reproachful. Elvis had never intended divorce at that time, but his inner conflict had already opened the door. Pregnancy, instead of binding them together, rang the first death knell. By 1973, the marriage once hailed as a fairy tale dream officially ended in divorce papers. Yet, unlike most Hollywood couples who parted in bitterness, Elvis and Priscilla walked out of court holding hands, smiling for cameras. That photo spread everywhere, confusing the public. Had they truly reached the saddest of endings? In reality, after the divorce, Elvis and Priscilla remained so close that many believed they had never really separated. Priscilla continued visiting Graceland with their daughter, Lisa Marie, dining with Elvis, sharing private moments few knew about. Despite his many affairs, Elvis still saw Priscilla as his confidant, the one who understood him best. In one interview, Priscilla said, "It was like we were never divorced." A simple but bitter line. On paper, they had ended their legal marriage. In their hearts, they remained a family. Priscilla never remarried, despite rumors of new relationships. Even her long-term partnership with producer Marco Garibaldi, with whom she had a son, Navarone, never turned into marriage, feeding the belief that her love for Elvis never truly died. Near the end of his life, Elvis also denied that infidelity caused their separation. He claimed it was his schedule and the unavoidable distance of global stardom. Perhaps it was a way to protect his image, or perhaps an admission that he had never wanted to lose Priscilla. When Elvis died in 1977, Priscilla became the guardian of his legacy. She transformed Graceland into a museum, turning Elvis's name into a billion-dollar cultural and tourist brand. Her post-divorce closeness gave her legitimacy to protect his image before the public. Graceland became more than a mansion. It became a temple for millions of fans. Elvis lived on in collective memory, and Priscilla became the keeper of the flame. Yet that shadow was both pride and burden. She could never live as an ordinary woman. Every choice from love to career was judged through the lens of being Elvis's woman. In the past decade, Priscilla has faced endless rumors, from botched cosmetic surgery to failed romances. But the greatest blow was the death of her daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, in January 2023. Social media quickly spread cruel speculation that Priscilla had influenced the hospital decision to remove Lisa's life support. The Presley family denied it, and the press dismissed it as baseless. Yet the rumors thrived, showing a harsh truth. Even after half a century, Priscilla has never escaped controversy. Perhaps that is her fate. From a teenage girl in Germany, to the wife in Graceland's castle, to the mother of Lisa Marie, to the keeper of Elvis's legacy, never once has Priscilla lived fully as her own person. She has been loved, admired, but also judged, dissected, and doubted. The marriage of Elvis and Priscilla was never a pure fairy tale. It was a blend of love and power, romance and control, sacrifice and commerce. From an 8-minute wedding to a make-up reception, from the years of Priscilla being molded into an ideal image, to the cracks of pregnancy and a divorce hand in hand, it all formed a labyrinth of contradictions. Elvis, the immortal icon, was never just an artist. He was the product of an entire system, one that demanded protection at all costs, even at the expense of his wife's private life. Priscilla, from a young girl, became both witness and victim, yet also the inheritor of his empire. The final question lingers. Will Priscilla ever escape Elvis's shadow? Or is she forever an inseparable part of the Presley story? Perhaps there will never be an answer. But one truth is clear. The deep bond between Elvis and Priscilla, with all its secrets, contradictions, and echoes, remains an unforgettable chapter in American cultural history. It is not just a love story, but a testament to the devastating price of fame, a price that still haunts the Presley family to this day. To close today's story, If the Elvis-Priscilla romance is a two-sided mirror, the bright side has been celebrated for half a century, while the dark side still cries out to be named. The question is no longer whether they loved or forgot each other, but whether we standing outside the spotlight helped turn their tale into a collective tragedy. And perhaps what's needed is not to look back with curiosity, but to confront our own hunger for idols. If you found these insights worth exploring, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss the next episodes, where we'll uncover more untold stories of the famous. Leave a comment about what you'd like revealed, and share the video with anyone who once believed in the Hollywood dream, so they too will know that every legendary love comes with a heavy price.